Hi guys, this is Steel City EDC, and today we're going to talk about the Berg Blades Alpha. So here we go. Now, Berg Blades, the guy who owns them and designs them is Matt Westberg. He's been going since I think it's about 2013. I believe previously he used Bestex manufacture his folders, but this one's done by Reitz as the OEM. Is it Reitz? I say Reitz, but I think it's Reitz. Anyway, so this is the Alpha. It was originally, I believe, designed as a fixed blade, and then he translated that into a folder. It's fantastic. I love this thing. It's titanium scales and a Magna Cut blade. And I believe he calls it the dark stonewash. Yeah, there you go. So it's like the dark stonewash. In terms of comparability, if you're familiar with Hindra knives, I would compare this to their working finish. It's that dark grey, kind of, people call it concrete. Whereas I think most people think of stonewash as being kind of that shiny silver. This absolutely isn't that. Just try to line that box up a bit. It's playing with my OCD. So I'm just going to talk about this for a little bit, do a few size comparisons, weigh it for you, and talk about my thoughts, really. So I'm really struggling to flick this in the morning. There we go, that's it. So two primary methods of opening: the fuller, to do the spidey flick or the reverse flick, depending on what you call it, and the front flipper. Now, I am catastrophically bad at front flipping, so I'll give you a bit of a laugh as I try. Yeah, you see, I just really struggle with that thumb action. I can kind of thumb roll it a little bit sometimes, but I struggle to flip it. Yeah, it will flip. You know, if I grip it there, it absolutely will flip out. It's just my spazzy thumb that struggles to do it. So don't let that put you off this knife. So this is a large knife, and let's move this out of the way, and let's do a bit of a measure. So tape measure out, and we'll put it to the front, to the back. So you can see we're talking 8 1/4 inches, which is a good sized knife. The blade is literally just over 3.5 inches, and the cutting edge, if we just pull this down here a little bit, is kind of 3.5. So good sized knife. In terms of size comparisons, we'll do a few of those very quickly. And I always like to do this way because when you're probably aware, but when you put them this way and you put one in front and one below and one above, because the angle of the camera, sorry, I really can't speak this morning, it will artificially make this one look bigger and this one look smaller, even if they're all the same size. So much better perspective putting it this way. Let's compare this against a few that you may or may not be aware of. So this is comparing it against the Hindra XM18 3.5 inch. And again, you can see what I was saying about this is in the full-time working finish. And you can see what I was saying colour-wise. They're very, very similar. Whereas if we compare it to the Spartan Hearty folder, in what many people would acknowledge is the more traditional stone washed, the difference is, you know, this kind of shiny silver versus the dark grey. So there you go, gives you an indication. It has a slightly more cutting edge than the XM18 3.5. In fact, it's pretty much size-wise, it's the same. The Spartan Hearty folder is a slightly bigger knife, but you know, that was always the case. What may be a better size comparison, actually, is the Chris Reeve knives Zan. So let's move the Spartan Hearty folder out of the way. Let's line the Zan up so it's nice and lined up, and there you go. You can kind of see this is a good size, full size knife. That kind of, you know, 3.5 inch blade, lots of space for your hand on the scales. Really good size folder. So you can see there the Zan has even more cutting edge because it has less of a choil. For a bit of perspective, I haven't really done this much, but This is the Cold Steel AD10, designed by Andrew Demko. And again, you can see size-wise. This is a big knife, right? But you can see it's kind of. Let's just line these up. There you go. That's a better size comparison. And this is a little Best Tech Junzi. So again, there you go. Just a little bit more perspective, because I'm very aware I often use the the same kind of knives for size comparisons, the XM18, the large Sebenza or the Zan, Spartan RC folders. But I like to throw a few different ones in there as well, so you've got that mixed perspective. And hopefully, some of you will be aware, or most of you will be aware of most of the kind of, or some of the size comparison knives I use here. So let's put these back out of the way. Now I've given you a bit more to think about. And let's talk a bit more about this. So lots of space for your hands. I mean, I've got large hands, right? And there's any amount of space here. I really like this knife. If I'm being critical, it feels like they've missed a trick here with this kind of finger choil bit here. I mean, you can choke up there if you want to, but it feels like your finger is right in the path there of that blade. Like it's feels like you're going to cut your finger, which wouldn't be the end of the world. A little nick if you had to do some hard work, but it just feels unnecessary when they could have kind of maybe brought it in a little bit more and given something to make that the edge of a blade a bit more of a definitive end. Particularly as you've got all this space here. And the smart thing might have been to kind of continue the blade down to here, and then just have a very tiny choil. So the blade kind of comes out and with this blunt edge before the sharp end happens. And given the amount of handle space, that would probably works really, really well. Admittedly, it might have changed the aesthetic slightly. For me, probably would have improved it. But yeah, lots of space, very comfortable, really great action. I mean, if you're not aware of Reeds, they are very high quality. Sorry, I'm really struggling this morning. They are really high quality Chinese OEM, that's original equipment manufacturer. They make their own products, but they make lots of knives for the people. For example, Chavez, most of their knives now made by Riet. They do lots of work for the people. They are good, and the quality on this is fantastic. There's no doubt. It's a really well-made knife. It's got great lock up there. It's got the lock bar inserts. It doesn't have the lock bar over travel, the lock bar stabilizer, and that was a bit of a surprise. But again, not the end of the world. I suppose there's often a kind of cost versus functionality balance here. These, I think from memory, were about $350 when they came out. They were a fairly small batch. I think it might have been 100 of these that were made. And they were done in various different finishes. I think some came as full tie, others came as like tie or G10 or tie in carbon fibre, I believe. But don't quote me on that. It's always best to go and check. But ultimately, this is a great design. And, for me, as someone who hasn't used this knife, and to be fair, I don't use most of mine. I'm very much a collector rather than a user. I have some users, don't get me wrong, and I'm very capable of using them. I was an infantry soldier for 3 years. I grew up in an era of time when kids, kind of from probably the age of about 8 to about 14, I was running wild almost in the forest, in the woods, in the fields, with a sheath knife or a folding knife in my pockets, an air rifle, building dens, camping overnight, hunting almost any animal that walks, because that was just how we grew up back then. So I'm very familiar with using knives, and it's not that I don't like using them, it's just that I prefer collecting them. So I do have my dedicated users, and they get some hard use. This has never been one of them, and it won't be. As I say, for me, the joy of this is in owning it and fondling it and photographing it and talking about it and sharing it for you guys. Pure collector, I suppose, and although that will appall some people, each to their own. There's no right and no wrong with these things. What I didn't do, actually, just very quickly, let me show you in terms of thickness. I should have done that earlier. So you can see, compared to the Chris Reeves Zan or Zan, very similar. Slightly thicker scales than the Zan, but very similar. And again, just whilst we're doing that, so I'll put it next to the XM18 3.5. Again, you can see the scales on the XM18 are a bit thicker, but there really isn't much in it. So that hopefully gives you a bit of good kind of idea of the the thickness and the sturdiness of this knife. And I have absolutely no doubts if I was to use this in a camping, survival, tactical type situation, it would be more than capable. It has the jimping here on the back of the blade. This is quite sharp. If you're wearing gloves, and I suppose this knife is probably designed for big hands with gloves, that would absolutely work nicely. It's got the little titanium backspaces here, no jimping or anything on that. It doesn't really need it. You can just see it's got the milled out scales, so again that keeps the weight down. And it's got this lovely titanium pocket clip that's very usable. In terms of the weight, let's quickly bring the scales in and show you. There we go. Okay, we're set to ounces and pounds, so put this on there. And again, as you can see, it's coming in at 5 ounces and 1 pound. So, not a light knife, but at the same time, certainly not an overly heavy knife for this kind of size, this kind of, I think it's probably generally considered overbuilt, solid titanium, full titanium folder. Okay, so my thoughts on this one. I really like this knife. Do I love it? No, I don't, but I definitely really like it. As it happens, I've actually just arranged to sell this knife, so she won't be with me for much longer. I've had her since new, and yes, I'll be sad to see her go, but at the same time, I had to reduce my collection for various reasons. So, bittersweet in some respects in terms of making this video, but I wanted to do it whilst I have this beauty still, because it is great. And I know there'll be some people out there that'll scoff and go, yeah, whatever, Chinese made junk. But I'll tell you what, guys, whether whatever your thoughts are on the Chinese, or as a nation or a manufacturer or whatever, they make great knives, right? Riots are one of the higher quality OEMs out there. I mean, I think, Kaiser, We Knife, Best Tech, there are a variety that are doing really good work. And these guys too, Riot is certainly leading the charge there. Max Ace, again, another one, absolutely fantastic. So, you may choose not to spend your money with them, and that's absolutely fine. It's a personal preference. But don't ever be fooled in thinking they're not making good kits. They absolutely are. And this is designed by an American guy, as I say, Matt Westberg. So, it has that US design, but Chinese build, and that makes it affordable, The comparable thing in a US made folder, price-wise, would be, I don't know, you're probably talking somewhere between, for a full tie like this, I suppose, you look at Curtis as an example, and you can get one of his full tie folders, not the ones made in China, but the ones made in America by him. For, I think they started about $500, $550. And that rises, you can go all the way up. The Chris Reeves, you're looking at somewhere between kind of $550 and $650, depending on which one you go for on the spec. You go into Koenig, the Arius, that would start at about $800. Medfords, again, love the man or hate them. That's not really the point I'm making here. It's more about the price and the cost of what you pay. Some of those go up to above $1,000, depending on the size and the model and the options you have. Whether it's got the vulcanized blade or whether it's got the milled or textured scales, whatever it is we're talking about. So price wise, for about $350 for these, they're really competitive. And they're a great knife. And, Ramon Chavez has followed a similar option, designed by an American in America and made in China. And that gives a lot of people that don't have the luxury of almost unlimited cash for these kind of things the option to buy these US designed, high quality Chinese made knives. So I say, and don't take me wrong, I'm not supporting and saying you should buy Chinese-made knives. That's not the point here. It's just about opening our eyes and expanding our paradigms and looking at the bigger picture for a lot of people. I personally prefer the US made knives, and the ones that remain in my collection, the vast majority are US made and designed knives, but I still have a few of these because they're great. Okay, so anyway, yeah, I think this is great. Highly recommend it. Bit gutted this one's leaving my collection, but I can't keep them all. Yeah, I think that's today's thoughts, really. I'm going to leave it there. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope I haven't bored you too much with my rambling. This is a fairly small channel, guys. It's completely unaffiliated with anyone, so you're getting an honest, unbiased view of my thoughts. I've been in this game collecting, using for, I don't know, about 10 years now, so, I've got a fair idea about stuff and what I'm talking about. Please do subscribe to my channel, help me grow, like, comment, share with your networks. That's all really, really appreciated. Okay, thanks guys, cheers and have a good time. Bye bye.